My name is Ava Thompson. I'm 32 years old, and the night my brother told me I wasn't invited to his wedding was the night I finally stopped begging my family to see me. "It's only for the closest family," he said, and then he laughed. He said it casually, like he was canceling dinner plans, not cutting his own sister out of a wedding reception being held inside the $572,000 house I bought for him. I remember staring at my phone, rereading the message while traffic crawled past my office in downtown Columbus, trying to decide which hurt more, the words themselves, or how easily he said them. My parents backed him, of course. They said the guest list was tight. They said the bride's family came first. They said I was being dramatic. What none of them understood was that the house they were decorating with white roses, gold candles, and imported champagne flutes still legally belonged to me. And while they were getting ready to celebrate my brother's new beginning, I was sitting in a lawyer's office signing papers that would end the lie they had all been living inside. The cruelest part wasn't that they excluded me. It was that they really believed I would keep loving them in silence forever. They thought I would keep giving, keep disappearing, keep swallowing every insult because that had always been my role in this family. They were wrong, because before that wedding night was over, the house would no longer be his. My father would lose the last illusion he ever controlled me. And the bride, the woman they thought was walking into a perfect family, would be the one who made everyone fall silent. Before I tell you what happened next, and why that house was never truly his, tell me, what time is it where you are right now, and where are you watching from? I'd love to see how far this story reaches. My mother's name was Elena Thompson, and she was the last fair thing in our house. When she was alive, fairness had rules. My brother Ethan got help with homework, and so did I. He got a birthday dinner at his favorite place, and so did I. He was praised when he worked hard, and so was I. Then cancer took her in October when I was 14, and the house split in two before the casseroles were even gone from the kitchen. Ethan was 16, tall, handsome, and already learning how easy life could be when people handed him the center of the room. My father, Richard Thompson, loved him the way some men love legacy, loudly, proudly, and without self-awareness. Me, he loved in theory. In practice, I became the child who could handle it. My mother's best friend, Maria Callahan, found me after the funeral standing alone near the back pew. She held my face in both hands and said, "Your mother made me promise I would never let you disappear." At 14, I thought she meant emotionally. Years later, I learned Elena had signed actual guardianship and trust documents in her final weeks because she did not trust what would happen to me once she was gone. She had seen the tilt in our family long before I had words for it. The years after that were a masterclass in being treated like background furniture. Ethan got a car at 16. I got told the bus still ran. Ethan's room got repainted twice. I wore a winter coat with a broken zipper for 3 months because asking for a new one felt like asking for a favor from the wrong bank. One night in high school, I asked my father for money for textbooks, and he said, without looking up from ESPN, "Ask your brother. I already gave him the budget." The budget, like our childhood, was a department, and he was the manager who had already approved spending on the employee he valued more. I started working breakfast shifts at a diner outside Columbus before school. At 16, I was pouring coffee for truckers at 5 in the morning, going to class with grease in my hair, then studying at night while my brother was at golf lessons my father paid for. The ugliest part is not that I struggled. The ugliest part is that I got very good at telling myself it was normal. On my 17th birthday, my father forgot to come home for dinner because he was at Ethan's regional baseball banquet. On my high school graduation day, he showed up 40 minutes late, just long enough to ask whether I could move my boxes out of the hallway before Ethan's friends came over. The pictures from that year tell the whole story. In one, I'm holding an honor cord and squinting in the sunlight. In another, posted the same day on my father's Facebook, Ethan is smiling beside him at a sports bar with the caption, "Proud of my boy." That became the rhythm of my life. At 19, when I made Dean's List, nobody called. At 21, when I passed my licensing exam, my father left me a voicemail 6 days later that began with, "Hey, quick question. Do you know a good lender? Ethan's thinking of refinancing his car." At 23, when I closed my first real estate deal, Maria brought cupcakes to my tiny apartment, and my father posted photos from Ethan's weekend trip to Put-in-Bay. At 26, when I hit my first six-figure year in Columbus real estate, I opened my phone and saw my father sharing Ethan's promotion with the caption, "Sons carry the family forward." Once, after too much bourbon at a 4th of July barbecue, he said the quiet part out loud. "Daughters are easier," he told one of his friends while I stood 6 feet away holding a tray of paper plates. "Sons are the future." I don't think he even realized I heard him. Or maybe he did, and assumed I would do what I had always done: swallow it, smile, clean up after. There were nights I almost quit. Ohio winters are brutal when you're young and broke and too proud to ask for help. I lived above a laundromat for 2 years, slept with a space heater humming beside my bed, and learned to budget by deciding which bill could survive being late. Maria offered me money more than once. She would slide an envelope across her kitchen table and say, "Your mother left enough that you do not need to suffer like this." And every time I pushed it back because I wanted, stupidly and fiercely, to know that whatever I became would be mine. Not borrowed, not pitied, not explained away as a gift. I told myself success would fix the story. If I worked hard enough, built enough, earned enough, surely they would have to see me. Surely competence would become love's translator. Instead, success only made me useful. The more stable I became, the more my family looked at me the way people look at a generator during a power outage, not as a person, as a resource. I thought becoming strong would make them respect me. It only made them more comfortable asking me to carry what they had no intention of carrying themselves. I thought success would finally make them see me. Instead, it only taught them how much they could take. The call came when I was 29 and closing deals fast enough that my weekends barely felt real. My father had not called in almost 3 years. No birthday check-in, no Thanksgiving invite. No, "How are you?" Just silence. Then one Wednesday afternoon, his name lit up my phone like nothing had happened. "Your brother needs a proper place," he said after less than 30 seconds. "He's serious about a girl from a good family. Renting doesn't look stable. Help him out." Not, "Would you consider it?" Not, "If you can." Help him out. Like I was being asked to pick up milk on the way home. The girl was Brooke Harrington, daughter of a wealthy Columbus family with country club ties, board memberships, and the kind of polished old Ohio social power my father had always admired from a distance. I knew exactly what he wanted. Ethan needed a better life stage. I needed to pay for the set. There is a particular kind of humiliation in realizing the first time your family truly believes in your financial success is the moment they can use it for someone else. I wish I could say I laughed and hung up. I didn't. Some bruised part of me still wanted the miracle. Maybe if I did something big enough, generous enough, undeniable enough, the math would change. Maybe if I gave my brother a house, I would stop being the daughter who made it on her own and become the daughter they were proud to claim. So I bought a 4-bedroom colonial in Dublin, Ohio, with a deep yard, a renovated kitchen, and enough polished charm to impress people who equated granite countertops with character. The price was $572,000. I paid cash. I kept the deed in my name, which was the only smart thing I did. And that happened because Maria sat across from me at dinner, narrowed her eyes, and said, "If you are determined to do something this reckless, at least do not surrender legal reality along with emotional dignity." She made copies of every document and put one set in her safe. Ethan moved in a week later. He hugged me in the driveway, called me the best sister in the world, and never once asked why none of the paperwork had his name on it. Looking back, that should have told me everything. At first, the erasure was gentle enough to explain away. Thanksgiving was small this year. Christmas was at Brooke's parents' place because her family had already planned everything. My father's birthday dinner was just immediate people. Then the omissions became visual. On the 4th of July, I drove by the house on my way to a client showing and saw Ethan in the yard, grilling beside a giant banner that read, "New Home," with Brooke under string lights, her friends taking photos, my father laughing on the patio like he had purchased every brick with his bare hands. Nobody had invited me to the housewarming for the house I bought. A month later, a client meeting ran long in that neighborhood, and by accident or instinct, I passed the street again. There was a Harrington family SUV in the driveway, catered trays visible through the front windows, and Ethan standing on the porch telling a group of guests, "Brooke really made this place feel like ours." Ours. That word did something ugly inside me. Not because I wanted credit in a loud public way, because I realized he was speaking ownership into existence over and over, until everyone around him accepted it as truth. Then came the social editing. Not the same tired Instagram beat from every version of this kind of story. Something worse. Brooke posted a Christmas photo from the staircase I had chosen at closing because it reminded me of the kind of warm home my mother would have loved. In the caption, she wrote, "Just a quiet family holiday in our home." My father commented with a heart and the words, "So proud of the life you two are building." My name was nowhere in the post, nowhere in the comments, nowhere in the story of how that house existed. A few weeks later, a friend sent me a screenshot of Ethan on Facebook answering a college buddy who asked how he managed to buy so young. "Family helped," Ethan wrote. "Dad made it happen. Dad made it happen." I stared at that sentence so long my screen dimmed. Not only had he erased me, he had reassigned my sacrifice to the one person who had spent half my life making sure I understood I ranked second. The deepest wound came from something stupidly small. I had once picked out a navy front door wreath for that house because Ethan said Brooke liked understated decor. The next fall, I drove past and saw Brooke had replaced it with a monogram wreath bearing an elegant H&T for Harrington and Thompson. Not Ava, not even neutral. A symbol, literal and public, announcing who counted in that home and who did not. I remember gripping the steering wheel and asking myself a question that embarrassed me by how long it had survived. Why am I still hoping? Why, after every forgotten birthday, every sidelined holiday, every small public lie, was some part of me still waiting for an invitation that meant I belonged? If you were the one who paid for your brother's house, how would you feel watching him smile under a new home banner while your name vanished from the picture? My $572,000 gift did not buy me a place in the family. It only made it easier for them to erase me from it. The lie cracked all the way open because of a phone call from a colleague named Jenna Morales. Jenna had worked enough Columbus closings with me to know the difference between nosy gossip and information someone had a right to hear. "Ava, this is awkward," she said one evening, "but a man I'm pretty sure is your brother asked a real estate attorney about a quitclaim deed and long-term ownership claims on an occupied property." I went cold. A quitclaim deed meant Ethan wasn't content to act like the house was his. He wanted the paperwork to catch up to the lie. I said almost nothing on the call, thanked her, then drove straight to Maria's house. She listened without interrupting, then disappeared into her office and came back with my file. Deed, tax receipts, insurance, every proof of ownership in perfect order. "Your mother did not leave me all this paperwork because she trusted your father to do the right thing," she said quietly. She left it because she knew he might not. That was the night Maria finally showed me the copy of the guardianship instructions my mother had signed. In one margin, beside my name, Elena had written in pen, "She will try to earn love by overgiving. Don't let that destroy her." I had to sit down after reading it. My mother had predicted me with terrifying accuracy. What followed was not one dramatic discovery, but a montage of evidence that turned my stomach because it was so methodical. Ethan had untagged me from old family photos. Brooke had referred to my father as the one who helped us build our home. A mutual acquaintance told me Ethan introduced himself at Brooke's engagement dinner as basically an only child now. My father had told at least 2 people at his club that the house was part of what I was able to do for the kids. He had not only accepted the lie, he had polished it. I spent one midnight in my real estate office alone. City lights reflected in the conference room glass, screenshotting posts, copying messages, and lining up facts like evidence in a trial I had never wanted to hold. Then Ethan texted me like a man stepping casually into his own grave. "Hey, random question. If we want to simplify things before the wedding, could you sign a quitclaim after the honeymoon? Cleaner for future planning." Cleaner. My silence lasted 12 minutes before I typed back. "Future planning for whom?" He never answered. The next morning, Brooke sent me my first direct message ever. "I'd appreciate it if you didn't create stress this close to the wedding. Ethan says paperwork has made you emotional." That was the moment something inside me clicked shut. I met with Russell Tate, a property attorney Maria trusted, in a downtown Columbus office where every surface looked designed to discourage melodrama. He reviewed the deed, tax record, insurance payments, and Ethan's messages. "Legally," he said, removing his glasses, "your brother is an occupant, not an owner, not a beneficiary, not a tenant with rights beyond required notice, an occupant." I asked the question that had been forming all night. If I sell it, can he stop me? Russell didn't even hesitate. No. He found a buyer faster than I expected. A military family relocating from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base who loved the school district and were willing to close immediately if we structured a short post-closing occupancy period before move-in. That detail mattered. It meant the sale could be real, recorded, and irreversible before the wedding, while still allowing Ethan and Brooke to use the house for the reception and then receive formal notice to vacate. Clean. Legal. Ruthless only because the truth was late. The wedding was on a Saturday in June. Russell set closing for Friday at 3:40 p.m. I signed everything with a steady hand I did not recognize as mine. The sale contract recorded that afternoon. Funds hit my account before dinner. Russell prepared the formal notice to vacate for service the next day, addressed to the occupants, effective 30 days from receipt, fully compliant. We agreed on one more thing. A brief email to Ethan, Brooke, and my father, with 3 attachments only. The deed in my name, the signed sale contract, and the notice. No speech. No vengeance monologue. Facts, deadlines, documents. When I left Russell's office, I sat in my car and cried for exactly 4 minutes. Not because I doubted the decision. Because I finally understood that the bridge I thought I had built with that house had never been a bridge. It had been a stage prop in someone else's story. When your brother starts looking for legal ways to take the house you bought him, and your father helps rehearse the lie, the gift has already become a blade. All that remains is deciding who stops bleeding first. The wedding day was bright and offensively beautiful, the kind of Ohio summer Saturday that makes people believe in easy happiness. I did not go to the church. I parked 6 blocks from it and listened to old jazz because silence felt too sharp. Jenna texted me in pieces from inside. "Brooke's dress is insane. Your dad is acting like he's hosting the royal wedding. Ethan looks very pleased with himself." I kept imagining my mother beside me, not approving of what I was doing exactly, but no longer asking me to carry what should have broken years ago. After the ceremony, I drove toward Maple Crest Drive and parked 3 blocks away from the house. The reception was scheduled there, printed on thick cream invitations that described it as the couple's home. At 5:52 p.m., the first wave of guests began arriving. Caterers moved in. Valet cones went up. String lights came alive over the backyard I had paid to landscape. At 6:11 p.m., the wedding party's shuttle pulled up. Jenna called me, whispering like she was narrating a robbery. "They're here. Brooke's getting out. Your dad is already by the front steps. Ethan is doing that fake humble smile." What happened next is the image I think about most. Not because it was loud, Because it was exact. Russell's courier had timed the delivery perfectly. He stepped onto the porch just as Brooke reached the front walk, still holding her bouquet, and asked for the occupants of record to accept a legal packet. Ethan tried to wave him off with wedding day arrogance. Brooke took the envelope instead. That alone made the yard go quieter. Brides are allowed to open anything handed to them on their wedding day. No one questions it. She scanned the first page, frowned, then opened the second. Jenna stopped whispering and said very softly, "Oh my God." Brooke looked up at Ethan and asked, not loudly but clearly enough that the front half of the guests heard it, "Who is Ava Thompson?" Nobody moved. My father started forward. Ethan reached for the papers. Brooke took one step back in her wedding dress, kept the packet in her hand, and asked again, sharper this time, "Who is Ava Thompson? And why does this deed say she owns this house?" That was the silence from the title. Not dramatic movie silence, the real kind. Shoes on stone, ice in glasses, a violinist stopping mid-note because even he could feel the air shift. At 6:19 p.m., while they were all still frozen at the front walk, I sent the email. Subject line, Property Records. Body, the property at 114 Maple Crest Drive closed on June 14th. Attached are 1. The recorded deed showing my ownership. 2. The signed sale agreement. And 3. The formal notice to vacate within 30 days. I wish you both a long and honest marriage. Ava. 3 attachments, no adjectives, no pleading, no rage. Jenna texted 1 second later. Your father just checked his phone. Then. Ethan looks like he might pass out. Then. Brooke is reading the email now. I sat in my car with both hands on the wheel, feeling neither triumphant nor shattered, just incredibly still. In the house, champagne was chilled. In the yard, 200 guests waited for a reception that had just turned into a reckoning. While they were raising glasses to the future, I had signed papers that ended the role they wrote for me. While they were arriving at the house they thought was part of their perfect story, the truth was already standing on the porch. In the middle of their celebration, I had done the one thing my family never believed I would do. I had chosen myself. Jenna's call that night lasted 43 minutes, and I remember every detail because revenge, when it is real, is rarely a single explosion. It is a structure collapsing beam by beam while everyone watches. Brooke stood on the front walk with her veil pinned over one shoulder, rereading the deed as if the paper might change if she stared long enough. Ethan tried first for speed. "Ava's my sister," he said, too fast, too casual, already sounding guilty. "She helped us temporarily. It's complicated." My father stepped in with the tone he used when he believed volume could replace truth. "Today is not the day for legal confusion." Brooke ignored him. She looked at Ethan and asked, "You told my parents your father helped you buy this house. You told me this house was effectively yours. You told me you had no sister close enough to invite. Why is her name on the deed?" Ethan's mouth opened and closed without anything useful coming out. Brooke's mother, Margaret Harrington, reached the porch by then, accepted the packet from Brooke, and read enough to understand the disaster within seconds. According to Jenna, Margaret's face went from social politeness to aristocratic contempt so quickly it was almost elegant. "Reception can wait," she said. "Explanation cannot." They moved the confrontation from the front walk into the foyer, but the open double doors and the halted guest flow meant half the reception heard fragments anyway. "She's dramatic." "That's not what happened." "Dad, say something." "Then why does the deed?" "Only for the closest family?" Brooke repeated that exact phrase because Ethan, in his panic, admitted he had said it to me. Jenna said Brooke's expression changed at that line. Not into tears, into clarity. She removed her bouquet ribbon from her wrist and handed the flowers to a bridesmaid without looking away from him. "You told your own sister she wasn't close enough for your wedding," she said, "after she bought you this house?" The bridesmaid didn't even know where to put the bouquet. My father tried to turn it into an attack on me. Ava has always made things theatrical, he said. Brooke didn't raise her voice when she answered, which is probably why it landed so hard. No, Richard. She made things legal. You made things shameful. At that point, Margaret took complete control of the room. She asked Ethan one direct question in front of everyone near the entrance, including 3 groomsmen, both photographers, the planner, and more guests than anyone could pretend not to notice. Did you lie to my daughter about home ownership, your sister, and your family structure? Ethan tried the kind of half-confession liars reach for when total denial dies. I simplified things. Margaret said, then let me simplify something for you. My daughter does not marry into fraud. Brooke still did not cry. She looked at the papers again, then at Ethan, then at my father. How many times did she ask to be included before today? She asked. Nobody answered. That silence answered for them. Brooke took off her wedding ring. Technically not yet her legal ring, just the band Ethan had slid on in church an hour earlier, and placed it on the foyer table beside the notice to vacate. Jenna told me you could hear the metal tap the wood. That tiny sound broke whatever illusion was left. The room went completely still. Even the caterers in the kitchen stopped moving. Brooke did not leave him at the altar. She did something worse. She stayed present and fully conscious while his image died. She turned to the guests gathering in uncomfortable clusters and said, I'm sorry you drove here under false pretenses. Please eat if you'd like. But before anyone toasts this marriage, I need it understood that the house attached to this reception belongs to the sister who was excluded, and that information was hidden from me. It was not screaming. It was disclosure. In a Harrington family circle built on reputation, disclosure is a public execution. Jenna said you could practically feel people resorting every conversation they had ever had with Ethan. My father's golf friend Walter happened to be there because of some country club overlap, and he muttered, not quietly enough, Jesus Christ, Rich, your daughter bought the place? Someone else answered, and you cut her out? That was the beginning of the social collapse. Brooke's father canceled the photographer's extended package on the spot. Margaret told the planner to remove any signage that said, the couple's home. Brooke canceled the honeymoon before dessert by calling the travel coordinator herself while still in her wedding dress. Then, in front of both families, she told Ethan 3 things had to happen if there was going to be any marriage left to speak of by Monday. First, a post-nuptial agreement. Ironclad, drafted by her family attorneys, separating her assets from every debt, claim, or family story he had touched. Second, full financial disclosure, including every message, every debt, and every lie related to the house. Third, a public apology to me, not through my father, not through Brooke, not through some softened family channel. Directly, in his own words, and in front of witnesses who already knew enough to understand what it meant. My father tried to object, and Margaret cut him off with a sentence that apparently made even Ethan sit down. You are not in a position to negotiate anything tonight. The reception never recovered. People stayed just long enough to gather facts and leave with them. Some ate because food was already plated, and wealthy people do not waste catered food out of principle, but nobody danced. The DJ stood idle for nearly an hour before packing up early. The best man avoided Ethan completely after learning the truth. One of Brooke's cousins openly asked whether Ethan had lied about other assets too. A bridesmaid asked why she had never once heard my name in 2 years of wedding planning. My father spent the evening trying to work small clusters of guests, speaking with the brittle authority of a man who could not understand why the room no longer took him seriously. Every time he said, "It's a family misunderstanding," somebody else answered with a version of the truth. A misunderstanding doesn't cost $572,000. A misunderstanding doesn't erase a sister. A misunderstanding doesn't require a notice to vacate. By 10:15 p.m., the grand story my father had tried to curate for years, respectable patriarch, golden son, good family, stable house, had become a cautionary tale moving from mouth to mouth under string lights I paid for. The punishment did not end that night. That was just opening statement. Within a week, the story had reached my father's country club in the form that hurts men like him most. Quietly, with details. Not. There was drama at the wedding. Worse. He let people think he bought the house. His daughter paid for everything and wasn't invited. The bride found out on the front steps. A retired judge refused to join my father's regular golf game, saying he did not enjoy spending Saturdays with men who froze out their own daughters. One business owner pulled back from a charity board initiative my father had hoped would raise his profile. Another told him plainly, "If you can rewrite your daughter out of your life, I don't know what your word is worth." That line got repeated enough times that my father stopped going to lunch at the club for a while. Respectable men can survive private cruelty. They do not survive public loss of credibility. Ethan's damage was different. Brooke did not file for immediate annulment, but she moved out for 3 weeks and stayed with her parents. The honeymoon money became attorney retainer money. Her friends unfollowed him in waves after Brooke posted a single restrained story that read, "The truth you find after the wedding tells you whether you were loved or managed." She did not tag him. She didn't need to. In Columbus circles, ambiguity with context is a blade. Ethan worked in marketing for a mid-sized tech firm where polished personal branding mattered. One of the senior clients happened to know Brooke's family. Another had attended the reception. Suddenly, Ethan was no longer being considered for the new client-facing leadership track he had been bragging about all spring. Officially, nothing punitive happened. Unofficially, he was not trusted with image-sensitive work. Reputations do not always implode in an HR meeting. Sometimes they simply stop being invited upward. Then came the apology calls. My father called first the next morning, furious, asking what I had done. I told him I sold my house. He said I had ruined his son's wedding. I said no. Ethan ruined his own wedding when he built it on a lie. Then he made the mistake of invoking my mother. "Elena would be ashamed of you," he said. I had been waiting 18 years for a sentence worth answering. "No," I told him, calm as glass. "Mom would be ashamed that you made her daughter buy her way to the edge of the family and still wouldn't let her in." He hung up. Ethan called later, voice wrecked, switching between anger and bargaining so quickly it almost sounded like a child trying different keys in the wrong lock. He threatened to sue. I told him to go ahead. He said we were family. I asked if that was before or after he told his wife he was basically an only child. Silence. Then tears. Real ones, maybe. But even then, when I asked the only question that mattered, "Sorry for what exactly?" he could not say it. He could not name the theft because naming it would also name me. A week later, Russell confirmed the legal challenge went nowhere. Ethan's attorney reviewed the documents and told him the truth in one sentence: "You have no claim." 30 days after the wedding, Ethan and Brooke moved out of Maple Crest Drive. The new owners painted the front door a deep red. Jenna sent me a picture. I stared at it for a long time. I was not joyful. That surprised me. I had imagined revenge as heat. Instead, it felt like emptiness, followed by air. Lighter, but strange. If the happiest day of your brother's life became the day he lost the house, the lie, the easy respect, and the certainty that you would always absorb the damage, what would you call that? Revenge? Justice? Or simply the bill arriving at last? In the weeks after the wedding, I kept waiting to feel victorious. I didn't. What I felt first was quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when you stop begging people to love you the way they should have all along. I used part of the money from the sale to pay off the student debt I should never have had in the first place, and with Maria's help, I used another part to create the Elena Thompson Foundation, a small fund for young women who lose their mothers early and have to build their lives without the support they were supposed to have. I wanted something good to come out of the last gift I ever gave my family. Then I bought a house for myself. Not a grand one. Just a warm, simple place with a front porch and morning light in the kitchen. The deed had one name on it: mine. On the first night there, I placed my mother's photo by the front door and said, I finally bought a house for the right person. Ethan sent me a letter months later. My father didn't. Brooke reached out once, respectfully, and I appreciated that. But by then, I had already learned the most important truth of my life. Closure does not always come from the people who hurt you. Sometimes it comes from the moment you stop waiting for them to become different. I used to think family meant sacrifice. I used to think if I gave enough, stayed patient enough, loved hard enough, they would finally see me. I was wrong. Love without respect is not family, it is survival. And survival is not the same as belonging. So if you've ever been treated like the backup child, the dependable one, the one expected to give and forgive forever, hear me when I say this. Setting a boundary is not cruelty. Sometimes it is the first real act of self-respect. If this story spoke to you, comment boundary below. I read every comment. And remember this, money can buy a house, but it will never buy your place in someone's heart. Sometimes the only way to save yourself is to finally stop paying the price for people who are always willing to lose you.
We hope this story left you with a strong and thoughtful message. Everything in this video is fictional and created only for dramatic storytelling and educational purposes. Never forget that walking away from manipulation can feel lonely at first, but it can also become the first real step toward freedom, clarity, and emotional strength.